Right? So we love trinkets, we love to wear things, and even the cross, which we wear hairs on the neck. That cross is some people would object and say you're supposed to worship God, not the symbol of God. The strict interpretation of fundamentalist Muslims of the Taliban was that they needed therefore to destroy anything that might confuse people into worshiping objects rather than spirits. Many other Muslims, the majority of Muslims, would object to that act, of course, because you don't get peace through violence and destruction. It's a long debate. The Catholics are more into preserving pagan rituals and transforming understanding. So in Catholic churches, you have a lot of statues. There's a Madonna and child. Of course, there's a Madonna holding a flag, but there's always the Virgin Mary with child that's somewhere on the altar, and people put offerings to it. There's Christ on the cross in many different stages. There's representations of the Passion of Christ on stained glass windows, right? To the Protestants, they were protesting that because they thought it lent itself to paganism. If you go to many Protestant churches, they're very simple. They don't have all that ornate thing. There's been a debate for centuries, well, should you allow people to get into fetishistic cultural representations of the divine? Most cultures like it. It gives them something to hold on to. We're material beings. Some have objected to how it moves us away from the transcendence that happens when you let flesh go and you think only of spirit. We had this debate, but Rorik's point was it's not for any authority, human authority, to make that determination. This is an individual journey. And that by having cultural representations of our feeling of the divine, we can better understand each other and understand different cultures. So they made this international treaty, which the Taliban broke. And it doesn't matter what your experience or faith or outlook is, we came together as an international community to preserve the cultural record of our religious, scientific, and artistic experiences, and that needs to be preserved so that future generations can know who we were and what we're saying, what we're thinking and feeling. So it has a significance, this banner of peace, and it's a shame that not that many people know of it and apply it, because it's too easy for us to get into a totalitarian situation where Big Brother, if you're reading 1984, I think I read that, George Orwell, or some consortium, some corporation that has too much power, some government, some union decides they are going to determine what we're supposed to know, and then they erase things. We're in a vulnerable time. We're all reading off of tablets and iPhones, digital information, which can be erased like that. One reason I hang on to books is because unless Fahrenheit 451 takes place, people read that one, they got to come to my house and find them and burn them. Knowledge is here. These will decay. Maybe it should be carved in stone. Some of the information is hidden in paintings. Some of it's hidden in stone. Right in here. And we don't know if that symbol that Warwick chose as a flag, since he didn't make it up, since it came from ancient Stone Age amulets, and crosses cultures, maybe hidden in that symbol is more than just art, science, and religion. Maybe those three spheres, if you had the right key to unlock it, are actually embedded history. Hard to know. You know what I'm talking about. Like, you have now, I don't know if I have one on me. I think I do. There's money. Hidden symbols, there's hidden symbols on the money. Yeah. All right. If you looked at this and you came from 50 years ago, would you have any idea what this is?
No.
That's going to switch. And if you cracked it open, what would you see?
SD card panel with like little squares on it.
Little squares. Maybe you'd analyze it chemically and go, oh, it's made of sand. What are you doing? You got sand on a little flat piece of plastic. Sand on a flat piece of plastic board. You'd have no idea that there was reams and reams, and this was 32 gigabytes information, it could be movies, it can be songs, it can be books, it can be encyclopedias, it can be animation, 3D, it could be computer code, it could be a virus, it could destroy the internet. You don't know what's on this thing. And you'd have no idea what its function was if you were just some archaeologist who picked it up. So now imagine that each of these amulets here is one of these. A sophisticated culture embedded in the crystalline form of those rocks, or embedded in the clay bonds of the pottery, or embedded in the structure of the pigments in the paint, which are all molecules, which all have different chemical properties and physical properties, just as this does. Basically the same thing: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur. And it's just the chemicals in the periodic table. They make this up, they make that up, they make the piano up, they make the paintings up. How do you know that there isn't an enormous amount of information hidden in there if you had a reader? Because all you're doing is holding on to this with no idea where the computer is that you could plug it into. Maybe those ancient spiritual leaders, maybe the wizards that you see in all of our fictions, maybe they were people who had technology who could read the stones, could read the idol, they could read the tree, the rock, the stream, all containing information. That's what makes it mandatory for us to protect culture, because we don't know what's hidden in culture. It isn't even just the obvious story. Oh, that painting's of a woman with a hat, she's got a ring. If you're an artist, you know that you might have an intention you put in the painting that others don't see. You might paint that book that's on her table and know as an artist what words are contained in that book, and know that it's a signal to other people who know of that book that there's something else to look for. They're clues. But at the same time, it's also theoretically possible that there's hidden information that could be read even if you didn't know the background.
If the world wants us to protect the culture, how come we can't express our culture in any other country? But they can express it here.
Many countries, because of geopolitics, are suffering from tremendous problems with governments, and the dictators or the groups that are running them can be an individual, it can be a larger group, it can even have a parliament, it can have a prime minister, a president. The power holders may not be comfortable with emergent property, and so they're trying desperately to hold on to what they have because they fear what they don't know.
But they complain. They complain that they can't express their culture here. But then, and they call it racism. But then when we go to their country, we can't do anything of ours. Or they prosecute us. Or they put us into discipline, they give us disciplinary actions. Like, how does that tail into the Banner of Peace?
Well, it doesn't. The Banner of Peace was signed by an international treaty by countries that believe in the values that Roerich and others were talking about. There's lots of countries that didn't sign. And those countries that didn't sign, it'll probably take generations before they feel comfortable honoring cultural diversity. The hypocrisy of the world is fairly well known, but individuals came together collectively to make this pact in the hopes that it would resonate with more minds all over the world until we were able to bring those ancient structures of hierarchy and dominance down.
But if they're willing, if we're willing to accept them into our country and let them do what they want, and we can't do that back, and they get upset, that's not fair.
That would be confusing the individual with the national identity. So individuals come here to this country because they admire the collective wisdom that we pooled together in these United States. With the beacon of the Statue of Liberty here in New York is one of the icons drawing people from all faiths and all creeds and all cultures. And then they often come here because they are in opposition to the policies of the lands that they left. Although they love their cultures very deeply and they love their traditions, they also want freedom to express it. That's the beginning of our country. People fleeing from religious persecution and cultural persecution.